Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this automation hour. For this automation hour, same logistics as always. We'll have all lines muted. If you have any questions, you can post them to the Salesforce Automation Hour Trailblazer community group, or you can also post in the question and answer inside of the GoToMeeting. This recording will be posted after the session. If you're not currently following the Automation Hour Salesforce YouTube video, then make sure you subscribe to that channel. And if you are not a part of the Salesforce Automation Hour community group, make sure you join there and check out the Automation Hour website for past presentations as well as upcoming ones. So we've got some exciting upcoming sessions here. We've got a few MVPs. We've got Shannon Hale just added to the schedule. So if you are interested in anything around the new release of how Flow is being improved, make sure you sign up for that one. That was just added a little bit ago. But tons of great ones. We've got a lot of people repeating, repeat visitors. So really excited for all of these upcoming sessions. And thank you to our sponsor, Concrete.io. They've been sponsoring Automation Hour since the beginning. And here are your co-hosts, myself, Jennifer Lee, and Rakesh. I will pass it on over to our presenter today, Michael. Michael, it is yours.
All right, I'll go ahead and show my screen as soon as you. All right, presenter, Michael Barnes. All right, show screen. Not sure which one you guys are seeing. Let's see here. Come on. Yeah, that's one. Okay, so everybody should see my face over here on the left, and just a little bit about me real quick.
I'm not seeing anything just yet.
You're not seeing, let's see. It says on air showing screen.
Any of the attendees able to see? Looks okay there. All right, it's just me.
Okay.
You're good to go.
All right, here we go. So Michael Barnes, I'm Director of Salesforce.com administration here at Golf Business Solutions. So we are part of the Golf channel and ultimately NBC Universal, Comcast, which I'll talk about a little about that next. But I've been here since 2013, been a Salesforce administrator since 2010. So just had a little bit of time under my belt before I found my dream job doing Salesforce administration here for Golf. So it's been a wonderful ride here the last 6.5 years. Started out in engineering at Georgia Tech, earned my MBA at UF, and since have fallen in love with Salesforce, been a Dreamforce a number of times, every year but 13 since 2011, but I've been a speaker at least 4 of them, and also I'm a repeat Automation Hour speaker here as well. So certified Salesforce admin, as you can see, and working on my trailhead. I'm gonna get, before the end of the year, I'm gonna get to 100 and earn that next level, but do plan on keeping up on my trailhead, keep my skills sharp. So just a little bit about Golf. Let's see if I can get this thing to change. Here we go. So Golf, who I work for, and who gives me some time here to present to you all, is a provider of not only television programming, but also technology services for both golfers and golf courses. So we have golfnow.com being our primary technology product that consumers can use to book tee times. We also provide tee sheet software. We're the largest provider of tee sheet software in the world to golf courses. And Golf Pass is a great program for consumers to not only get access to tee times and some free golf, but also to get some other content, including training, and other things that we used to have disparate packages for. Now you can get it all in one Golf Pass. So, anyway, that's enough about golf. Let's move on to what I'm here to talk about today, and that's some apps from the AppExchange. So I'm sure most of you, if you've been a Salesforce admin, you know there's the AppExchange. You can plug things into Salesforce that can enhance your use of Salesforce. And the 5 I'm going to really focus on today are Squid, Nintex, which has the DocGen tool, as well as a workflow tool, DocuSign, and Jitterbit. these are tools that I've been able to use together to put a fully automated contracting process. So when we do a contract with a golf course, our team is inputting the information in Squid. They're automatically generating a contract document from the data they entered in Salesforce via Squid, via Nintex DocGen, and then they are sending that out for DocuSign, and Nintex workflow helps facilitate mass updating related records once the signing is complete via DocuSign. We also use Jitterbit to help manage some other data processes around the same. So kind of all 5 of these together work together for our process, and I just find they're really great applications, and just wanted to give you just a little short demo or brief insight into each one. So it's not going to be comprehensive for sure, but hopefully it'll give you a taste of what each of these products can do, and you can always reach out to the vendor for a full demo and see more. They'll be happy to show you. Just to clarify, I work for the Golf Channel. I do not work for any of these companies, so this is all my editorial content, and they're not paying me to show you this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my, let's see, how do I get this to change? Let's see here, let's go over to, got too many tabs open, I should have closed most of them. All right, so here we are in demo land. So what I've created here is, this is just in my developer org, and we have a Squid Demo page. So as you can see, I've built this right into Lightning. This is an example of what Squid can do as far as you can create a list view. And what's nice about it, and I've only got a few elements on here just to show you, but you can make things, of course, a lot more complex than this. Or you can also make them simpler by not putting as much stuff on it. But you can come in and just take a look at, certain records just by dynamically filtering. So this is something that, it's not easy to do on a standard Salesforce page, but it's completely feasible in a Squid page. You can also create a record in line right here. And of course, you can see my save button showed up as soon as I go to create a record. I can also, edit records in line without any concerns about record type or any other things that you normally have to worry about in a Salesforce list view. Also, I can drill in. As you can see, I can show contacts and opportunities here for this. And I can also make updates to those records right here as well. And by making a change, I realize, oops, this is supposed to be .edu. I can click save, and this actually updates anything on the page, depending on how I have this configured. So I've configured this to allow me to create and add new contacts, create and add new opportunities, all right here within one screen. So I'm not having to click away into another screen. I still stay on my main list view, assuming this is the page where I live. In fact, I've created for some of our core teams, I've created pages, Squid pages that are specific to that team. Usually we can actually add a bunch of tabs up here, which I've not shown that here, but you can add tabs so within a page, you can actually have sub tabs. And I've created tabs that for certain teams that, hey, these are the 5 things that they look at all the time. So instead of having to create different reports and or even a dashboard, it's visual, they really want to work with the records directly for some of the things they're doing. And so I can create some pages that work like that. You can also create visual elements as well in Squid, but I just wanted to at least give you a quick review of what Squid can do, and I'll show you a little bit on the back end. How does this actually happen? Because it does take a little bit of configuration. That's one of the things about Squid. It does allow you to get into trouble where standard Salesforce pages, you can't really go wrong, right? It's hard to break them. It's hard to make them where they just won't work. Or Squid, you can make it to where it just won't work, depending on how you put it together. So if we go to the Squid demo page here, this is normally you could actually, one thing is nice, you can get to that edit page right here. If you're a page editor, if you have that permission, this button will pop up and it will actually open this right here for you. And inside, you can see you have access to all these different components. So right now I'm just using a button set to drive those save close buttons. The reason they pop up is because the display logic. I say if they have unsaved changes in the models that I've developed, which I'll show you the models next, it's going to render and show these buttons. Otherwise, it hides the buttons. There's no need to show save and close, but save and cancel. Very similar to Lightning saving. If you make an edit on an edit screen, the save buttons will appear. Very similar functionality. But what the extension, of course, is being able to show these drawers. So I can show contacts. I have an action to open and close the drawer. And when I do that, I have some before actions that are actually updating my models, which when I show you the models, that make more sense, but I update some conditions on the model, the data model, to make sure I'm showing the right thing. And then on each of these pages, I make sure I'm only showing records that are in context. Actually, I guess that did that automatically for me. Normally I would add that, add context, where the record, the account ID of the record is the ID that I'm seeing. So if I didn't add context, I might need to do that so it doesn't cause problems. It's as simple as this. It's all declarative. That's what's nice about this. I can just say, just make sure the account ID equals the ID of, oh, that's because I'm on my contacts object, contact model, context. Just make sure I got this right. This is my contact. This should be my account. Yeah, there we go. There's my account ID. That's what I wanted. So my account ID and from the contact object has to match the context of the account that I've drilled in on that drawer. So that way, if I open multiple drawers, it won't show me different things. And just save here to make changes. So one thing I recommend if you're going to use Squid is to make sure you save and save often. I mean, that should go without saying, but the nice thing about saving is you have different versions. So you can go back to prior revisions. So you can see all these are all the saves that I made. You can see it was all put together. At least my recent changes are all pretty recent. But you can go back in time if you need to further and further to make updates to your Squid page. If you need to go back to a prior version, you have the ability to do that. So I could go back to when I first built this on 9.9, I could resurrect this, restore this version. It restore it, so you'll see it on the screen, but you have to actually click save to actually put it back into production, as it were. So that's a little bit how Squid works on the back end. It's very easy. It's all declarative. There are ways to extend it further with CSS and with JavaScript. I frankly use very little CSS, very little JavaScript when I'm building Squid pages. I really stick to the declarative elements as much as I can. There's been a couple instances where I had to use JavaScript to make something work. I've been able to search for it on, just doing a Google search, found, or on a Squid community, found somebody had already built a similar JavaScript. I know enough to be dangerous, so I could tweak the JavaScript to match my objects and models, and then and go from there. But the data model is, of course, the basics of everything you see in your record. It's Salesforce Lite, if you think about it. You're doing a page that's very specific to certain fields, to certain certain conditions. So it's your filter conditions that you'd have like on a list view. You build them in here, but the nice thing about them is that they can be dynamic. So I mentioned that you could have a type field that's this is an example of one that I could set manually with or I have like another one that's automatically created depending on how you build your filters. So when I come over here, this is a filter that you add. You can just add a filter, just add features, add a table filter. It'll put it right on your table. And then you can, if you do an automatic, you pick a pick list field, for example, it's easy, right? As long as your pick list field's basic. Now, if you have a more complex pick list field that has a lot of options, it's not going to pay attention to record types, for example, as far as filters. So it's not going to know, oh, yeah, you only want to filter certain values. You could change the context of your filter to be manual, and then you can set your choices manually. You could even set choices that are, hey, I want to, if it's any one of these three, I want to filter it in. If it's anything else, I want to filter everything else. So you can really make more complex dynamic filters with the tool, but there's some pretty easy to use out of the box tools as well. So it's really how you want to use it. The other thing is mass updating records. So let's say, I'm gonna go ahead and close this for now, but let's say I want to update all these records. You have the option to mass update records as well here. You can change anything, so not unlike what you can do in a list view, but it's nice that you don't have to worry about some of the restrictions that you have in a normal Salesforce page. Excuse me. So that's my Squid demo. That's how most of our users are entering data into Salesforce. I use it because we do have some complex data models, especially with a lot of objects that are excuse me. We have a lot of join objects joining disparate data sets, and so using Squid, I'm able to actually build a lot of complexity into it. So it does allow you a lot more depth of complexity in a page. The dynamic showing, you can actually dynamically show or hide fields based on certain conditions being met. So you have that ability to have display logic at every field level, at every element level. That's really, to me, that drives the, it makes for much more dynamic behavior on a page without as much clicking through records. So anyway, let's move on to DocGen. So DocGen is the next step in our process. We've gone in through Salesforce, and if you don't use Squid, DocGen can work with your Salesforce org, right? It's a completely separate product provided by Nintex, formerly called Draw Loops. If you're familiar with Draw Loop, that is what DocGen for Nintex DocGen now is. And you have the option to create DocGen packages. So this is, once you're configured, you can come in, build a package, and really what it consists of is these three elements that you see. They've got a new Lightning UI, which is really slick. It's really easy to use. Everything's kind of in one place versus the old classic UI. And here you just name your package. You identify which starting object. It can be a custom object. I've got one of my major processes actually works off a custom object. And then you can do relationships, from that object. So of course you have the core object, the opportunity object here I'm starting from, but then I can create lookup elements. So in this, I've already of course tied a count to it, but I have anything that has a lookup relationship, you can bring off to the side here. Anything that has a child relationship, that's going to be this down here. So op products, which I've given that an alias to, is here. So if I click edit, I'll show you kind of how that's put together. Because what's nice about a child relationship is you can put an alias to simplify the name, so you don't have opportunity line items, something really giant, especially later on when you're dragging tags into a document. This makes for a lot easier management of what you're doing. And you can also say repeat records, but if you have a table, and this really refers to like a word table, if you build like a word table into a document and you have tags, and let's say there's no opportunity products for that line item, it'll just delete that table. So that way you're not having extra elements show up on your document, piece that would just be blank. We've had historically Word documents that the team would use to key in everything. They would upload to DocuSign manually and tag everything and send it off. So we had some integration to Salesforce so that when it was signed, it would come back. But there was still a lot of manual input of information, and there were a lot of blank spaces on the documents because they were working from a Word template, and if they'd have to put NA in some empty spaces. Here we can actually control the cleanliness, I guess, of our contract document, because you can say, hey, if this particular type of record doesn't exist, just don't show that whole table. And that's what this does. So this delete table function will actually do that for you. So that's super handy. So that's in setting up relationships is pretty easy. It's all, again, very declarative. If you want to get more complex, and I do have some a DocGen process that does drill into some depth of relationship, especially through join objects. Join objects don't really work with these standard relationships. So if you have, I've got like a parent object joins to potentially multiple children objects. I actually have to use SOQL queries to get that to work. So it's good if you're familiar with SOQL queries. If you're not, if I have time, I'll touch on how I develop my SOQL queries as well. So just to show a little more about the next step, so it's the document itself. So you've now got your data model set up. When you actually have your data model set up, that's the field tagger up here in the right-hand corner, which I'll pull that up. That actually tells you what all the tags are going to look like. So for every object that's in your model, opportunity, whatever it is, you can actually just drill to a specific field. Just shortens this list at the bottom, but you can always scroll down if you want to look at all your tags. But once you have all these tags, you can then come in and build your Word doc out. That's what this is here. So let me pull this over on the screen. So this is an example of just a Word doc template that I built really quick for this demo, right? So these tags can fit anywhere inside of Word doc, where you could have all your contract, your standard language that is static. These tags can be embedded within those, with those static text. And also you can put in a signing tag, you'd want to make the text white. That way it doesn't show up for the user, that for the customer, they won't see the signing tag, but DocuSign can read the signing tags. So you just have to embed the signing tags in, which that's more in the delivery method, which I'll talk about in a minute. But you can put all your dynamic tags right here. And for a related list, so this is the opportunity products, this is where you have to put the start element in, which is available for each of your, basically your data models within DocGen. And then you have out each of your fields that's gonna repeat based on each row for that related list of records. So this way you can show, if it's just a one-to-one relationship, of course, straight tag works just fine. But if you have potentially multiple records of a particular object that are gonna be coming into your document, this is where you use the start. And I recommend you use a table to embed that, because the nice thing is, again, if nothing gets returned, there's no hot products for this particular opportunity, that table just gets is disappeared. It doesn't actually flow through to your Word document at the end, or to your final PDF, whatever the output's going to be. So you can see how the tags are pretty easy to apply, easy to find once you have your data model set. Tricky, of course, is getting your data model in a good shape. That's definitely where the most of the work is. Once you have a good data model, dropping all your fields in is no problem at all. And then you have to decide how you want your output. So you could just do you could do a button on your record that would call this DocGen package and just generate the document. And you can always run a test. So this is what's nice about once you have your document tagged. Oh, I skipped a step, sorry about that. So once you have your document tagged, you have to put it somewhere, right? So that's where you have files in Lightning. So I recommend use your libraries. If you're still in Classic, use your libraries. The other place that typically stores things is in documents, the documents object, which doesn't really exist in Lightning, at least not in the same way. So I recommend using the libraries, just a lot easier to pop your file in there. As you iterate and make changes, you just can upload a new version to your from the library. I can say, just putting a new version in. It'll ask you what changed, so you can keep track of maybe iterations you've done on updating that document. And that's what'll then ultimately, you can come here and say, yeah, I've got a new document. See, I already got the one template tied, but normally you'll have a button to add a new document, and then you'll choose the library. Actually, I'll go ahead and remove it just to show you this, because this is kind of important for this product. So just choose your library, choose DocGen files, and choose demo, right? So it's that simple, right? It's very easy to attach a document, and now you've got it. And now you have a document attached, you have data attached. Now it's for delivery. Delivery could be just, as I mentioned, a button that calls the DocGen package and generates the document. But before you do that, you provide the output to your team, you might want to take a look at it. So you can pick a sample opportunity. You can pick just to test the download, run DocGen package. And just as quick as you can do that, it's going to run the process. I'll just show you, what the output looks like, so we don't have to wait for this thing to run, because it does take a few seconds sometimes to run. But this is the output of the process. So it has my account, my opportunity name, it has my op products with each of the quantities that I've assigned for that particular opportunity. So it's just a great idea to come across, use this tool here to test the DocGen package, make sure the output's what you expect. You're getting, go through a number of different use cases to make sure you're not getting passed through bad data, especially if you're sending sales contracts along. So the other delivery method that I use, you can't get to here, this is one of the downsides of the DocGen package tool. At least the Lightning UI is not all the way there yet. So they've got some basic delivery options available. But what you might want to do is you might want to send it to DocuSign directly, which is what we're going to get to eventually here. So to do that, you actually have to switch to Classic, and in Classic they have the option to do the to get to the DocuSign integration. So the DocuSign integration, again, is pretty, it's all declarative for setting it up. Yeah, it helps, it's a good idea, and we'll get to DocuSign a little bit later, but it's a good idea that you have DocuSign already, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing, DocGen. That's good idea that you already have DocuSign in the package already installed, because the way this really works is DocGen can generate the contract. Nintex workflow can send to DocuSign, but I found that the DocGen send to DocuSign is much more reliable and has been working. It's been around a long time and it works very well. Like it has, since I moved to that, it has no problems at all. So but you do have to set that up in Classic. That's the only downside of that particular integration. And so to do that, I would just say new delivery option, because you might still want to download it to have it local, whatever, so you can see what you just sent. But I can go ahead and just say DocuSign here, continue. And from DocuSign, I can set up all the parameters. And once you have that set, so I'm just going to put test. Once you have that set, the next thing you have to do that's critical path for this is add recipients. So you have to say who your recipients are. These are all your signing tags. So I mentioned you have to put your tags in your Word doc. So if I have a DL.sign here, I'm going to make this the recipient number 1. That's important. You have to put the recipient number, even though it's not required. If you don't do it, it won't work. And I'm going to go ahead and save. So now what I could do is on my Word doc, I could put that DL.signer down here, DL.signer.1, because that's how you specify which signer. And this is where I want to make sure that this is going to be color white. Oops, that's my background. Let's see. I need to find here it is. Helps if I do this one. There we go. So now that tag is hidden. No one can see it. You can't even see it. Hopefully you spelled it right. Otherwise, you're gonna have some problems later. But so you can always, of course, switch the color back to validate that. But you hide it so that no one's gonna see it. But it's still in the metadata of that document that gets generated by DocGen. And when it gets passed through to DocuSign, DocuSign will replace that with a tag. So that's again, critical path for making that work. There's a lot of other options you can drill into, and I don't have time to show all those today for quick demo on these products, but that's DocGen, super handy for generating documents and then for passing them through, either just to spit something out or to send it off to DocuSign. So we already talked about files. So Nintex Workflow. So Nintex Workflow is a really handy tool. This is, I use this for, in my process, specifically the 2 things to assist the approval process. So we use this, I initially used the Nintex Workflow approval process to send approvals to our team, to the managers, to approve our sales contracts before they would go out for signature. And the nice thing about that, one of the requirements that my boss gave me was like, hey, if it's approved, want it then immediately go out for signature. And I'm like, well, we can do that if we keep everything inside Nintex. If we use Salesforce, it's a little trickier. I could do it, but the one, actually, I definitely could do it, but the downside of that is the Salesforce approval process doesn't allow you to pass documents easily. Unless I'm missing something, I'd love to hear there's a way to do it. But when you have a Salesforce internal approval process, there's no way to pass the sign, the document we're going to send for signature in with the approval. So they can't just on the approval record click into the document and take a look at it. Whereas in Nintex you can, but it's all done via email. So so we do use that approval process. We have used that initially, but the team revolted and said, no, we really like Salesforce approval, out of the box approvals. Can we please put it back there? So I did, but what I still use Nintex for is for routing the document. Since standard Salesforce can't do it, Nintex can. So I still pass into Nintex the file. I pass in I have a process so I know who the approvers are going to be for that particular process, and I email them a copy of the document that they're going to have to approve, so that they have a way to see it. So that works pretty well. And then the other side I use it for is similar to what I'm showing here. We have some pretty complex record updates that we do, again, because we have so many join models and things. When one of our sales contracts is completed, we want to write the date that was completed on all the child records, and doing that with Flow, frankly, would break Flow. Flow is great and it works really well, but if you get too many updates or queries, it does break. It just can't handle high volume because it tries to do everything at once. Nintex Workflow doesn't try to do everything at once. That's one thing I like about it. It actually does things step at a time. It's slower, no doubt. It does take a few minutes for a process to run, even but I have a pretty complex process. This one would run pretty quickly. It does have to wait for an event, so it doesn't run instantaneously. So it's more like using a flow with a time delay, if you think about it that way. But the flow itself, the process itself running runs at a little bit slower pace. So that way it also doesn't break. It doesn't hit the SQL query limits like you can. Now, if you can mess this up, it's very easy to overdo it, to try to do too many. You don't want to try to do a lot of decisions in here like you would do in a flow. Flow does decisions very well. Nintex workflow doesn't do decisions very well, but it does let you query a group of records pretty efficiently. So as long as you set your query, with conditions that are smart, and you just work on small batches of records, it'll work great every time. But you kind of have to think through what do I want to do with this batch versus another batch of records, and you can run through a whole lot of records without getting impacted on SQL query limits. So just want to show you that it's, again, a very declarative process. You have all these elements on the left. It can also talk to external systems. So that's something I didn't talk about. Squid can do this too, as far as you can attach to external databases, and Nintex is the same. So instead of having to use Salesforce, external objects or something, Squid could do that for you at a much lower cost, frankly, as far as I know. And then the Nintex workflow can actually run workflow relative to external systems. So you could pull files in and out of Dropbox or Box, Google Drive, which I've done some demos and tests of these integrations. It works very well. It's very easy to set up. I do have the DocuSign integration, but it does have very limited capability here relative to the integration from DocGen is much more robust. So you can get it done here. I just found it's a little more tedious to get to DocuSign from here. And so we have some workflows that'll happen. But I also, DocuSign, I mentioned DocuSign, which I'll go ahead and move into now. DocuSign is I guess I lost my DocuSign tab. So DocuSign is a great tool it has a package that integrates into Salesforce, and as long as you've passed in an external record ID, and Nintex DocGen does this for you. That's one thing Nintex Workflow at least hadn't done last time I tested it, so that's why not as reliable. But Nintex DocGen will pass in the record ID of the record that you started from. Your primary record. You can pass that in, it'll pass that into DocuSign. DocuSign then will have that as an external ID, and if you have the integration directly from DocuSign back to Salesforce, it's going to update the information based on how you configure it. And unfortunately, I don't have a DocuSign trial org. At least that has the integration to Salesforce set up. I have a demo DocuSign org, but it doesn't have all the hooks. So you have to set up the hooks between DocuSign and Salesforce. It does take a little bit of configuration to get the two to talk to each other. No different than getting Nintex to talk to Salesforce. It's not that hard. It's all declarative to set up and follow the instructions. They have plenty of instructions online. Once you have it set up, then you can pass information. As the DocuSign envelope is updated, somebody looks at it, signs, voids, declines, whatever the case may be, it can pass that information back to the Salesforce record that's tied to that DocuSign envelope and make updates to that record directly. So, and then you can trigger workflows or Nintex workflows, which we do on our org based on that interaction. So it's kind of like a little bit of a love triangle there. You got Salesforce talking to DocGen, DocGen talking to DocuSign, and DocuSign talking back to Salesforce. And that loop works very, very well in my experience. So the last thing on my, let's see here, make sure I'm on track here. Yep, so again, if you're not familiar with DocuSign, I highly recommend you to download it, at least do a free trial of DocuSign. There are other e-signature tools out there. In fact, Nintex has their own, so if you're not a DocuSign company already, for us, it was hard for us to leave DocuSign. We've got a lot invested, and it works really, really well for us. And it's the first mover on e-signing. But there are other e-signing solutions out there at this point in the world. Nintex has come up with their own mostly in response to DocuSign buying a company called, oh shoot, now I forget the name of it. But they bought their own document generation business. Spring CM is what it's called. So DocuSign bought Spring CM. We have looked at them. Frankly, I just found Spring CM value was not as good as what I get with Nintex. But having that DocuSign Spring CM integration might be even better. So haven't got there to check that out yet, but something you might be interested in. Spring CM is another AppExchange partner as well. So, and there, of course, there's a number of other tools you can consider as well for DocuSigning, for getting electronic signature done. So the last tool I wanted to show you, that's again one of my favorite tools, is called Jitterbit. So I've got a lot going on in Jitterbit. Actually, this is my production org, so I'm not going to show you the production things in here, but I did create, nice things are I was able to create a query that is, let's see if I could, I got all kinds of stuff open here. Let's get that back down. So I got a query that I created that is pulling information out of my demo org. So I do have this demo org set up. And what's nice about Jitterbit, it is the UI is a little bit clunky. Actually, I'll tell you the downsides of it first. So the downsides of it, UI is a little bit old, and it does have multiple steps to get things done, versus like a data loader.io. Data loader.io is very easy. It's pretty. It has the sharper it's UI. It's all cloud-based. Whereas the Jitterbit Cloud Data Loader that I'm showing you here is a free solution. So this doesn't cost anything. Data Loader.io, if you want to do, it is also free up to a point, but Jitterbit is free all the way. So I've got everything you've seen here that's running is actually doesn't cost anything. They do have a Harmony product, which frankly I've seen some previews. It does a lot of stuff that we just don't need, at least that my team doesn't need to use at this time. But the Harmony product looks pretty sharp. It's a newer UI, and then they have a data loader element in there. But this standalone data loader has to have loaded running software, even though it does push to the cloud and everything kind of runs out of a cloud server somewhere, a Jitterbit cloud server. In order for the cloud server to actually act and run on your schedule, your software has to be running. So this was something that took me by surprise when I first moved to it, because I assumed, hey, once I deploy to the cloud, it says, hey, deploy to the cloud. I figured once I deploy this item, it's going to run. Well, when my computer was off at the end of the day, things weren't running. Next morning, some of those jobs might kick off and try to get going. Other things were missed. So I finally realized we had to put it on a virtual machine. So that's what it's going on here. We have a virtual machine here at Golf that is hosting this software, and it runs all the time. So that's one of the prerequisites. That's one of the downsides of using this versus using a data loader IO. One of the benefits is it's been super reliable, whereas my experience with the other product has not been as pristine, and did hit the limit because we again have dozens of these data load processes in use. We did hit a limit on once we got over about 120 or so processes, it stopped working. And that included, everything, total processes, queries, and updates. So what I do use this for is a lot of summarizing of data. So you could use reporting snapshots, right? Reporting snapshots works really well. We do have some of those in place. I've used that historically a lot, but found that there were some limitations, especially with record quantities. If we wanted to snapshot, 5,000 records, you can't do that in a reporting snapshot. Really good for some very limited summary data only, but if you want to snapshot a lot of information, you'd have to move to a different product. And also, when you do a snapshot using like reporting snapshots, you can't write to any relationship fields, and you can't have any workflows running on those objects or any processes or anything. So if you try to add any automation around the objects, it also breaks the snapshot. So there was a lot of limitations around reporting snapshots that I just kept running into that were frustrating. And so using these tools for various purposes has been a godsend. So really the main thing here is pulling the queries. So I've written a query from this, from an object here, but in order to really to work with that query, you have to have some place to build it first. So that's where I go to Workbench. So if you're not familiar with workbench.developerforce.com, highly recommend you check it out. It's a great place to come just test some queries. You can drop your query in and see what results you get. If it does time out, often that's one of the frustrating things about data loader IO. But you can come in and just at least test your query, make sure it works. Because if you spell something wrong, it's going to let you know right away. It's going to give you an error. You're going to say, oh, what is it? Oh, it says opportunity line item 2 does it not support it. Oh, I didn't mean to fat finger 2 there. You can come back and put this in. So it's very easy to make updates to your queries, get them right. Once you feel that you got the right data, at least we'll give you a quantity of how many records. You think that smells right, makes sense, that you're getting the right volume, then you can come back and put it into your query editor here. And then you can always test here as well, but it's just a lot faster in Workbench and you get better feedback, in my opinion. So another part of this is, of course, besides the query, you have to write the data somewhere. So I've just written it locally. You can write to an FTP location, which most of mine do write to FTPs. You can also schedule the jobs so they run on a certain schedule. Now, if you're not running anything on schedule, of course, you don't have to put it on a virtual machine because you're only going to run it live. But if you want to schedule anything, that's when you have to have the virtual machine in place. Otherwise, it won't run as you expect it to. And then on the query side of things, update opportunities too here. You can see I'm just grabbing that same file that I created in the query, and then I can edit mappings. This is where it's really cool about this versus like even a data loader IO. So I can map my ID to my ID. So it's just a drag and drop interface, right? So I can get rid of this, delete this. Actually, let me make sure I'm deleting the right thing. Oh yeah, delete mapping this node. That's what I'm gonna do. So it's just simple as just drag and drop to set the node. And then you see this one has this kind of hang out in space. If you double click on any of the fields on the right-hand side, you can then set a value, either true or false, but in single quotes, you can put a text value. And that solves most of what I need, because sometimes you just need to, hey, I created a whole bunch of records. I just need to set a field to all these to a specific value. That way, you're not having to run, maybe a workflow or process real time. You can just run a periodic job that will keep your records, updated with the correct information. So that's what we do, a lot of that. This is just a quick example. I want to set the lead source, the demo, in the case where we have that. So this. So besides Workbench, one of the other tools that I find super helpful is Google Sheets. So Google Sheets, let me see, so Google Sheets, let's do that one here. So if I go into Google Sheets, they have an add-on. This does cost a little bit of money. I think it's right now list price is $25 per month if you pay up front for the year. So it ends up being like $300 a year, but to me, it saves me so much time. It's incredible. When you start your Google Sheet, inside under data, here as soon as it starts unloading, sorry, I should have had this open beforehand, but I think I inadvertently closed it earlier. So if I click on, under tools, no, add-ons rather, sorry, give it a second here. So under add-ons, we're gonna have a G connector for Salesforce that you can install. So it's just an installed add-on. You get it like a couple weeks for free. So if you want to check it out, it's like a 2-week demo. And then you can log into production just as easy as clicking the log into production link and say log in. And you can see it's logged me into my dev org. It tells me it's successful. I can close that window. So that's as easy as to get in. And once you do that for a page, you don't have to do that again. So I created a brand new page. I've got to do that one time only. And then I can come in here with my SQL query. And let's say I had a whole bunch of records. Let's say ID not in. So I'm gonna have more. It's not a whole lot of records, but there's 34. So I'm gonna copy this. And let's say I want to get that out into Excel to do something with it. I can copy this in here, click Get Data, and it's going to go ahead and query Salesforce and pull that data with all the record IDs right here into a Google Sheet for me to use. Super handy, super easy to use. You can actually create formula fields, have a couple tables, do VLOOKUPs, and as long as you don't change your query, your columns persist. All your pages will automatically update as you requery for data. So I find it's very handy for doing data auditing, and if you need to make some quick updates to a group of records, you could use data loader, standard Apex data loader, but it's tedious to build your files and do the loading and do the mapping. This, if I wanted to update all these amounts to $1, it's simple as just making the update to all the records, and then coming back to add-ons and doing an update now. And from here, I can wait for this thing to load. Give it a second. Normally it's a little faster than this. I might have to close and try again, because normally it'll pop up with something. Let's try that one more time. Just sometimes it has a moment. Let's try that again. Come on, there we go. That's me behaving better now. So now I can say, I don't really need the name to be updated, so I'm not gonna mess with that, but you just choose the columns that you want to. You always have to have an ID if you're gonna do an update, of course, and then you have to have your amount field, and just a matter of pushing selected rows. So the mapping is super easy. It's mostly automatic. You can drag and drop fields here. You can change your data model. Let's say it's really my account that I need to update. I can change the object, just as simple as searching for it here, and it pulls in all the objects. You can do inserts and updates, inserts and upserts as well from here. So very handy tool. Just I use it all the time. And what the beauty of this thing is, I come back in here to do get data, because I just made a change, but I didn't really save it. I want to get back to what it really originally was. I didn't lose my query. So this is a place where I store my queries, frankly. I've created a number of Google Sheets where my queries are just, they live, and I can go to the tab, find the query. I don't have to save it into some other document or somewhere else, because if Workbench, it's going to time out in a few minutes. If I hit query, it might already, now it hasn't timed out yet, but it will time out pretty soon. And when you hit query, oh man, it's all gone. I just lost what I did. So just something to be cautious about when you're in Workbench, because what you see here, you might just, I find it a good idea always just to highlight Control-C, get it saved. But if I drop it in here, I never lose it. That's what I do love about this. And of course, you don't lose it either if you have it on your, if it's inside of Jitterbit, your queries are stored there as well. Though, you might want to keep them somewhere, maybe in a document for safekeeping long term. But anyway, that's this is so again, just highlighted tools. This Google Sheet, kind of a little extra bonus there, but it kind of goes in with how I manage my queries, and I also use this often for data modeling before I get into Jitterbit. I'll model things out here, determine what I want to do, what I want to update. When I say, oh yeah, I can update things here manually, or I could just create a Jitterbit job to do it for me every day. Then I don't have to worry about paying attention to it anymore. It'll just keep things current for me. So that is everything I had to share with you. I know it was all very fast. Got through a bunch of products. It gave you a very limited overview, but happy to answer any questions you have about any specifics that I didn't maybe cover. So any questions?
Awesome. Okay. Let me read the questions. I see the screen. No, it looks like it was very clear to the people. Guys, if you have any questions, any doubt, you can put it on the question section of the GoToWebinar, and me and then David is reading those questions for you. So what is your favorite app, Michael, from the AppExchange? Like, if you say lots of apps, so which one is one of your favorite apps?
So Squid is definitely my favorite app. I mean, before I had Squid, I had Flow, and it sounds like those don't really match up. Flow is a workflow tool. Of course, there's a visual element of Flow, and that's originally was intended for that, right? Before there was headless flows, you had basically, it was like a wizard. But the problem with Flow is how many screens you have to go through to get something done. You make a decision. If, let's say, you make a selection, and based on that selection, now you have to answer some addition. You have to fill in some additional fields. You have to click next to go to another screen. Where within Squid, I could do a pop-up, or I can change based on the decision that's made on a field. I can dynamically render additional fields that have to be filled out. I can make a much more concise, fewer clicks to get something done page. And I can also do a lot of can really be back-end workflows. It's not as clean as Flow, frankly, if I'm in Squid, as Flow is for just pure workflow, but it's nice that it's can all be all in one place. So you can do a lot of actions. That's something I didn't really even touch on here in any depth, is if I can create a button, for example, let's just say, let's just do a button real quick. I can just give you a quick show. Oh, I got buttons right here. Okay, so I've created a button. I have actions. So all right now I'm gonna do is saving changes, but I could do a lot more here. I can do a branch, which is logic. This is the only time you do need a little bit of kind of a little bit of coding. I could say, that the data model associated with this, the ID is null. So that's about as much coding as I do. So I say I'm looking to check to see if an ID is null for a related model that I'm on, and if it is, then I'm going to do one set of actions and be done, perhaps. Or I can say I'm going to do this and continue with whatever the next action is. So branches are basically decision elements in Flow, except they only have 2 outcomes. So so it's a little weaker than Flow. In Flow, you can of course have a decision element that takes you a bunch of different places. Where in Squid is also very linear. You have one step after the other. Branches are one way to break that up a little bit and say, well, based on what's going on, I want to either go one way or another. And you can put a series of branches in to be similar to replicate what a decision element with multiple outcomes would be. Just have to make sure you make them pretty smart. So anyway, so Squid, definitely my favorite as far as it's all in one package. You can get UI, you get workflow for some pretty complex things without having to use Flow to do it.
Okay. And people is asking impact on adoption with Squid.
Impacts on adoption, huge improvement on adoption. So just be able to create pages that make sense for users. They're less likely to go live in Excel or just not keep their data up to date. It also allows me to enforce data cleanliness. I've created a lot of pages that are kind of audit pages. I mean, we created them for our revenue finance teams where here's all the records that you guys need to go through, and make it easy for them to make updates to data, especially across multiple objects. So let's say you have to update your contact, you have to update some other information about that record that may not be all on the account layer. It also helps you keep from having to put everything on the account. So for example, if you're on a page, so I'm on an account page here, but let's, if you needed to create, what you can do, and this is pretty handy. So let me go to the opportunities model, for example. So I can say, when I go to create a field here, you have all these relationships objects, which are the ones with the little arrows next to them. So I can drill in. I could show them not only the owners, who the owner is, but I can also show them the owner's email address. Let's say I just wanted to show that. So I've got the owner and their email address now is a field on the opportunity model. So I don't have to go do a lookup or do a formula field on the opportunities object. It saves from a lot of field creation at the object level, because you can drill in and on the list view show a field that you normally wouldn't be able to show. So I can now open this up, open my drawer. I can say, yeah, I want to show not only the let's contacts. Let's go to here. Let's say I want to show the owner's email here. This is just a random thing. Normally you think through what you really want, but let's go to back to owner, and then I can see that I got the email field here available. So that's just an example of and also it just says email. It does put a default label on there. I can say that's the owner email. I can change the labels on here. Let's say I don't need to say opportunity type. I just want it to say type. I can come and override the labels. That's another thing I love about it, is I can simplify, and I can also customize specific to a specific team. So I have one field that every team uses, but this team wants to call it something else. Well, I can't make it just a special name just for you, at least not in Salesforce out of the box. In Squid, I can create a Squid page, and on that Squid page that you use every day, yeah, this field has a slightly different name that makes sense for your team. But at the end of the day, it's still putting data in the same field in the same place it always has, and I don't have to worry about trying to create duplicate fields just for one custom process, that sort of thing. As you can see, I probably could do an entire demo on Squid because I could talk about this all day.
Sorry, I was talking on mute. And Marco said thank you. And one people is asking like how they can get the access of Squid.
How do you get access to it? So you can download onto your dev org, like I've done here. It doesn't cost anything to put on a dev org. You can actually go to the AppExchange and download it on your production org, and it's free for a period of time. So I know they have a free trial period, and it's very easy to download. Again, just AppExchange, very easy to find. Yeah, you can always reach out to Squid directly. I'm sure they're happy to help you out.
Okay. And then, no, we don't have any other question. So let's wait for, we have 4 minutes, guys, remaining. So if you have
no
any
questions.
Here.
Well, I mean, I'll talk a little bit more since we have a few minutes. If any questions come up, feel free to interrupt me.
We have 4 minutes, so you can talk, sir.
All right. Yeah. If anything comes up, just feel free to get a question in. I mentioned a little bit about the DocGen admin. DocGen is a super great tool. One of the catches that we came across in setting it up was in the DocGen admin side of things. There's actually, let me go to setup because it's has to do with connected apps. When you're, and this, I'm still in Classic here, but in Classic or Lightning, you have connected apps, and one of the ways to make DocGen work without having to go through a lot of hoops, which we jumped through a bunch of hoops not knowing what we were doing, and we did the installation ourselves, by the way. We didn't use any external services. That's true of Squid as well. I didn't pay anything to them to set me up. I was able to kind of figure it out on my own and just go through their tutorials and training that's online for free. But when you're in here, if you have DocGen, Nintex DocGen loaded, go to the connected apps and set up your profiles. Now, this is a demo, so I haven't set it up, but in real life, I have set up profiles to have access to the DocGen app. So that way, I didn't have to deal with like everybody trying to authenticate individually. You can authenticate, like pre-authenticate for them basically at the profile level. So that's just something to watch out for. I think it's in connected apps. I might be in the wrong place, but there's a setting for basically connecting all of your profiles to that app. Let's see. So I can always show you stuff on Squid. Squid is again, it's a great enhancement to the UI. You can see that this is built into a Lightning page. One of the benefits about that is you can create a Squid page that's as big or as small as you like. We've got some, on a standard account page, you can add tabs. So let's just show you that real quick. This is, let's go to accounts. So if I'm on accounts, I should have made those links. I could have gone right to an account. Let's go to accounts. And so I click on company ABC here. This is a standard, Salesforce page, but you can add tabs. These tabs are actually customizable in Lightning. So if I come in here and I click Edit Page, I've done this on some pages because Lightning's fine. There's no reason to throw it out, and plenty of it works great. But Squid is a great enhancement to Lightning. You can create standalone pages like the one I created, or you can just say, you know what, I just need a new tab up here. I'm going to go ahead and click into this page, add a tab. I'm going to click on details here. That's the one I just added. Just take a second because it's being a little slow. Come on. Oh, come on. So I can change this. I can change this to a different choice. It's just being really, really slow right now, so I apologize for the delay. But I can change this to a custom tab, and I can say this is my Squid Demo page, right? And when I come into Squid Demo, I can, over here on the side, when you install the app, you have a Squid page custom component that comes with the app. So you don't have to create this custom, it's a managed component. So it comes with the Squid app when you install it. And then you type in, you can select the page from all your pages that you have available. So right now I have one page in this org, so it's pretty easy to find. But if you have multiple, you could add more. So let's say I just wanted to have this embedded in the Squid Demo, or I wanted to. This is an example I use. So let's say I have opportunities, and we have a lot of opportunities a lot of them are out of date, and we have that in our org. And I just want to show the current opportunities. So I can create an opportunities tab and just have it dynamically filtered in the Squid page to just the stuff people want to see. And I can allow them to then have filters on that page. So you can see my filter now shows up right here. All the elements that are in the Squid page now are embedded in a standard Lightning page. So when I go back to my account,
Oh, cool.
It's now here. So this is it's really as easy as that. It's really a matter of building your Squid page and thinking through what do you need, what do you want to have on there. But now I have a Squid Demo page that's embedded in a standard account page. Now this one doesn't make a lot of sense because it's more of a list view, but you can create pages that not just list views but are actually field editor style. They have a bunch of different components. You have to get in and just mess with them and figure them out. And there's on everything in Squid. This is one of the things I like about it. Let's say I click on. This is the last thing I'll show you. Then I'm gonna shut up. If you click on like navigation, for example, there's a tutorial for everything, and it's right here. So if you click on navigation, like, well, what the heck is that? Just click on the navigation component tutorial. Takes you to the Squid doc. You can read all about it. They have excellent documentation. If you read it closely enough, you're gonna laugh a lot because there's a lot of funny little things they stick in there that only people who read it will find. But anyway, that's all for me today. Thank you so much for listening, and good luck on finding good apps on the AppExchange.
Thank you. And let me check. No, so we don't have any other questions. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for presenting for Automation Hour. We really appreciate it. And thanks, guys. Thanks for joining the session, and we will post the recording very soon.
All right. Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.